RuneScape is a weird game. And no, I'm not talking about what can only be described as Wintertoad Stockholm Syndrome. The fact that legions of players stand at the GE buying burnt food and other items that most of us consider useless trash. Or even the fact that you can sell stews to a dude in a tree. While there are many weird and bizarre things in everyone's favorite rhythm game, today I'll be focusing on one specific weird thing. Skilling. Specifically, which mining and smithing method will get me to 93 smithing faster? Iron or steel? Now you might be asking yourself, why 93 smithing? Why only iron or steel? Well, that's because this is Chunk Random, my one chunk Ironman who's crossing all of Gielinor one chunk at a time. But there's a catch. Every chunk I roll is randomly chosen from across the entire map. And after several rolls and many hours of grinding, these are my current chunks. Now my main goal right now is to make the mostly useless tier 5 Shazian body. And in this episode, I'll be running an experiment to see what my fastest way to make that body is. So make sure to stick around because the results are going to be quite interesting, and we'll be taking a deep look into the best two methods that I have available to me. Currently, I'm at level 75 mining, and I've got a ton of ore grinding ahead of me. Aside from the big Shazian body task I'm working on, I also have a chunk task to buy the Edgeville respawn from Castilia, which I can get for the cheap price of 5 million GP. And I plan to use steel plate bodies for my mining and smithing grind as my main moneymaker for the chunk. But since you all probably don't want to see an entire video of this, although if you do, there is a place to see it, I figured I'll get grinding in the background and show you updates as I work towards my other goal for the video, whittling down my chunk task list. So currently I'm at 95 out of 177 chunk tasks complete, and while a lot of them, such as all 5 tiers of 5 Shazian armor pieces, are locked behind smithing, I want to try and get as many of these done as possible and eliminate the thought of anything but mining and smithing from my head going forward. So let's rapid fire a few tasks. First off, I visited Castilia for a 2-for-1 deal. Now what I needed here are a face mask and earmuffs, with equipping the earmuffs being a direct chunk task. There we go, easy peasy. Now over here in Lovakinj, equipping the face mask lets me mine some volcanic sulfur, which is a diary task. And there we go. Now if I head directly south, I can get another diary task done by mining some Lovakite ore. And next up, I'm heading back to Edgeville to mine some adamantite ore, which is my mining skilling task for the chunk done. I said that's my mining skilling task for the chunk done. The mining task is done. Jeez, that took a long time. So now I'm off to kill some black demons for a few drops to wrap them up as well. One thing I do differently on my Xtreme is I'm going for every drop for monsters. That's usually a supreme thing, but I like this addition to really complete the chunk. However, if 2 monsters drop the same item, I need to only get it once. So this will become less and less of a thing I do as the series goes on. Here's an Insult Demon head, and a Myth Kite shield, and that's the black demons done. Next up, a Poison Spider killed, and also Chronozone the Family Crest boss, which I definitely killed first try, and absolutely did not forget to bring the 4 different blast spells twice. With that done, I'm back in Varrock with my focus on money, and as I mentioned in the intro, I do have a 5 million GP respawn to buy, but I also have another money related task, and although it's quite a useless investment, it's at least much more reasonably priced. So for now, I've cleaned up my bank of all the extra items that I don't need, so I can start selling them to shops around town. And after a bit of world hopping to get better rates, I've got 67k. Which is not enough, but luckily I do have some runite stuff that I can cast High Alchemy on, which is also a skilling chunk task. Now while I'm High Alching this stuff, let's talk about one of the most bizarre facts about RuneScape that I have ever seen. High Alching is one of the most important unlocks for an Ironman account, as it allows a player to magic an item away and get 60% of its value in gold. Not the GE value mind you, but the value set by Jagex that is used for calculating shop prices. But why do we only get 60% of that value? Well, you see, if you go all the way back to December 2006, there was a post back from the Hedge that had a letter written for Santa. Now it's pretty long, so I'm not going to read all of it, but let's focus on the first paragraph. Santa, I just have one main question. How do you afford all the materials needed to make those presents to give out for free? It must be way out of your budget to pay for all the RuneScape players. If you work independently, how do you get paid? You must be losing a lot of money each year, and you're probably in debt unless you have some sort of Santa magic to conjure up some materials. And Santa's response was, to your main question, good Stiovani, it does not cost me much to make so many presents, as we have a deal that I cannot completely reveal to you. All I can say is that when you high alch, as you call it, some of the material gets a little waylaid. We also give the taxmen extra special pins for Christmas, and they tend to leave us alone. Essentially, Santa is saying that a portion of the money from high-alked items is siphoned off to fund Christmas present production, presumably about 40% of the item's value, which is why we only get 60% of an item's value when high-alking it. Since these postbags are considered canon lore in old-school Runescape, that effectively means that Santa canonically steals gold from players on a daily basis. Like I said, this game is weird. So with those rune items high-alked, and thus my funds for this year's Christmas presents siphoned away, it's time to head to Death's Domain to buy this useless 200k GP investment. A new gravestone, which only I can see. I guess you viewers can see it as well, but chunk task complete. Okay, so quick coal update. I'm approaching 3,000 coal banked, and I'm running into a very interesting problem. I have so many lamps in my inventory that my coal mining is becoming quite inefficient. So I'm going to mine a few hundred more coal to get to 3,000 exactly, and then start smithing some bars so I can get a few smithing levels before I use these lamps. Alright, 3k coal in the bank, and it's time to smelt 1,500 steel bars. I don't think this should take me too long, and I should get some decent smithing levels along the way. In fact, here's my first level already, 33 smithing. So let's do the thing. And here's the last inventory of steel bars. Took me a bit of time, but it wasn't really too bad. So now to grab my hammer and head over to Varrock for smithing the bars. All of that got me to 41 smithing already, which is pretty solid, I would say. And after some number crunching, I'll be making these 1,500 steel bars into steel swords to make the most profit per bar. 42 down, and only 51 more to go. Almost halfway to 93. I was flying through these bars, and it wasn't long before I hit 45 smithing. But around this time, I felt like a small break so that I could do one of my other tasks was in order. So I headed back to Edgeville to finally do a task that people have been asking about since I started this series. 40 thieving, so that I can pickpocket a guard. Now most of this grind was done during a Twitch live stream, where my viewers got to slowly watch the 4,500 or so pickpockets I needed on these men to hit 40 thieving. And with no other thieving options in my chunk, this was all I could do. So I settled in for a lot of clicking. Hi there. I wanted to take a quick sec and remind you to hit that subscribe button and like this video if you're enjoying yourself. I'd really appreciate it, as I'm aiming to reach 10,000 subs this year. And if you choose to leave a comment, just know that you will absolutely get a response from me, regardless of what you write. Now getting this 40 thieving task out of the way might seem very insignificant to most of you. However, for me it goes a bit deeper. As I said, I read and respond to all comments on my videos. And since day one of this series, there has been one type of comment that I've gotten more than any other. So today, I created this absolute piece of cinema to give those commenters their time to shine. Enjoy! I don't know, man, it's just... I've been getting asked about this since episode 1.
I know, I've read the comments. But now is your time to finally put your hands in that guard's pants, man.
Pretty sure I missed 40 thieving to pickpocket a guard. And don't tell me there are no guards in your chunks. I can see
why isn't pickpocketing the guard on the chunk task list? Like, you have access to the M21, 22.
40 thieving to pickpocket guards? But what if I get caught?
You just gotta believe in yourself. Now get out there and violate that guard!
You guys have no idea how long I've been waiting to do that. It's literally been like 7 or 8 months. But in all honesty, I appreciate all of you who comment and try to help or make sure I didn't miss things like this 40 thieving grind. You guys are awesome, and I just like to poke a bit of fun. Back to the smithing grind now, and these are the last few bars. And that's level 50. So now it's time to turn in these 5 frog tokens and use all my lamps on smithing. This is kind of wild. I've never had 16 experience lamps in my inventory at one time. But these are all going on smithing, so... That's some delicious XP, my gosh. Time to world hop and sell 1,500 swords. Alright, I've got one last task that I want to get done before we get to the experiment. And luckily, I just realized that I can make garden pies in my chunks. I have to get the flour from imps and the pie shells from randoms, but otherwise I have everything I need. Let's just hope I don't burn these. Back home in South Fally Farm, I've been making some massive progress on farming. It's been extremely slow, but I have managed to get over 1,000 potatoes, as well as a decent bit of onions, tomatoes, and strawberries as well. So we just eat this half a pie, and plant some watermelons. There we go. Now I only have 19 watermelon seeds, and 2 of these pies at the moment, so I'm going to be watching this allotment like a hawk for the next hour or so. I absolutely refuse to let them die. Alright, so it's been about an hour, and I have not moved from my computer at all, just in case they tried to die on me, which they did not, but you never know. And this is going to be some juicy experience for my farming level. So I guess I could also use these watermelons for super compost as well, but I don't think that's probably maybe my best decision with them. I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet, but hey, I'll take it for now. Alright, should be almost finished here. That's 24 already. That's a pretty good number. I'll take that. 25, okay. Let me plant these real quick and we're going to get this achievement diary out of the way. I'm realizing I don't actually know how to do this. Spear on the watermelon? Maybe it's spear on the haystack. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, and put the watermelon on there as well, so that's the head of the scarecrow. So the scarecrow just needs to go in this flower patch right here, and we should be good to go. I don't know if I have to actually rake this, but I might as well, just to... I mean, hey, it's 12 extra experience, I guess, at the end of the day. And then I think I just plop this down here. Yep, there we go. Okay. Diary task completed. Not bad. So with all the tasks that I can complete at this time out of the way, there's been some solid progress in this episode. Currently at 129 out of 177, so that's over 30 tasks completed in this episode alone. And the rest of them are basically all tied to the smith and grind in some way. So of course there's the Shazian body there, that's the big goal. The Adamant Warhammer, which I'll be smithing myself. And all the other ones are like best in slot Shazian gear or Adamant gear, as well as all of the individual Shazian armor pieces themselves, which is 25 tasks in and of itself. So it's all going to be coming in that smith and grind. Now one other big task is 85 farming for a toadstool. Now I'm currently at 44, with a boost I would only need 82, but realistically with only one allotment available and my smith and grind taking most of my time, this just isn't going to happen anytime soon. So I'll be doing the thing that most chunkers do when making this farm and grind passive. I'll work towards it, it will get done at some point, but the last thing I want to do is get my 93 smith and grind done, and then sit at an allotment for 3 months making no content. So I hope you all understand. So now we come to the big experiment that would decide my fate for this smith and grind. While some of you are already yelling at the screen that iron is the obvious answer, I implore you to watch this segment, because it's not always so cut and dry. Now let's set the stage by going over the basics really quick. Right now I have level 50 smithing, and my goal is 93 smithing to make the tier 5 Shazian body. While I have access to pretty much every ore type below Runite, outside of gold, which is extremely important to note, if you do the math and calc some rough numbers, it becomes clear that I only have 2 real paths to victory if I want to leave Edgeville anytime relatively soon: iron or steel bars. To reach my goal with iron bars, I would need to smelt and then smith 189,200 iron bars. And while an iron bar only requires 1 iron ore, it also has a 50% success rate, meaning that I would need to mine 378,400 iron ore. And to reach my goal with steel bars, I would need to smelt and then smith 129,000 steel bars. And while that sounds like a lot less than the iron bars, that still equates to 387,000 total ore mined, since each steel bar requires 1 iron ore and 2 coal. So that's the basics, but now we need to talk about what makes RuneScape skilling so weird. You see, mining and smithing higher tier ores and bars is way more experience per action than mining and smithing iron. However, counterintuitively, as many of you undoubtedly know, mining iron ore is normally much better experience per hour than coal or myth, addy, etc, etc. As this video shows, in about 1 minute I got 18 iron and 9 coal due to the success rate of each ore. This also applies to other skills in the game, such as woodcutting, with oak trees being faster experienced than yews or magics in a lot of cases, or fishing for shrimps and anchovies being comparable XP to lobsters per hour. And if you ask any Iron Man, especially a chunker, 11 times out of 10 they're going to tell you to do iron bars over steel bars, oaks over yews, etc, etc. So that's it, right? Obviously I should go with iron. Case closed, let's get to it. Well, I wasn't so convinced, so I ran some tests during a few live streams to see if iron really is the quickest way to my goal, like everyone's been telling me that it is. On day 1, I mined coal at the sulfur mine for the entire stream, and I was sweating it. I was focusing on nothing but coal for about 3 solid hours. For the first hour, I mined here since it was closest to a bank. This was my general loop, you've seen it before, and I managed to grab 376 coal in hour 1. Then, my chat suggested that I switch to this area for hour 2, and the impact was immediate. In hour 2, I mined 411 coal, and while hour 3 was cut a bit short due to my son, I was on pace for over 400 coal ore again when I ended stream. So I can confidently say that if I'm focusing and I'm in this location, I can average at least 400 coal per hour. And theoretically, as I get more mining levels, that number should go up. So let's keep that number in mind for now. The next day I went live again and did the exact same with iron ore in the Edgewood Dungeon Mine, which is the only place that I can access iron ore in my chunks. The massive perk here is that I can use my looting bag to bring back 54 iron ore per trip. Couple that with me one-tapping the iron rocks due to the success rate at my level, and you can see why iron ore is usually a quicker training method. Now it was immediately clear after the first trip down to the mine and back which method was going to win, and it wasn't even close. In an area like the Dwarven Mine and Mining Guild, the Al-Kharid Mine, or even west of the Hunter Guild in Varlamore, a player can easily average around 600 or 700 iron ore per hour. But now I want you to watch this timer on the left hand side. I started this trip with exactly 1 hour on the timer. Now we've seen this loop before. Run down to the mine, mine 27 ore, run north to the wilderness, fill my looting bag, run back to the mine 27 more ore, and then make my way back to the bank. And all that took just over 7 minutes for the first trip. Now keep in mind that I had full run energy when starting this trip, a luxury that I won't have on follow-up trips down to the mine. So I put on my headband, and I went hard on mining. And in the end, I managed 432 iron ore in that hour, which is severely under the rate I could get pretty much anywhere else. Now yes, I could have tested multiple hours here to make sure, but I don't think it was necessary. For one, the most important variable is mining time per ore, and it doesn't change on iron as it does for coal since my success rate is 100% compared to 32% for coal. So even with follow-up hours, the results shouldn't vary by more than a few iron ore, and most of the difference would be due to either gems or run energy. So now let's make some sense of this part of the experiment. For iron, we'll be going with 432 per hour, and for coal, we'll take that 400 that we talked about earlier. I think it might be slightly higher than this, but let's take an even 400 to be safe for now. That means I would need 876 hours for the iron method and 944 hours for the steel method. Iron wins, but that's just for the gathering part of this grind. So let's take a look at part 2, smelting. Now for both methods here, I'll be smelting 1 inventory at the edge of a furnace. That's 28 iron ore per trip and 9 steel bars per trip. After one quick round of testing iron, we have our time of 98 seconds. And while that's quite a lot, it's because we're smelting 28 times per trip, which takes quite a lot longer. Whereas for steel it only took 41 seconds, but that's because we're only smelting 9 bars. So now if we do some simple math, we'll get our total smelting times. For iron, 367 hours to smelt all of the ore, and for steel, 163 hours for the 129,000 bars that I'll need. So steel has managed to claw back some time here. But let's head over to part 3 to get those final numbers. Actual smithing. Now here, 1 inventory of either bar should suffice since I'll be doing 25 bars either way and making plate bodies the entire time. So one trip of that takes 38 seconds, which gives us our final calculations needed for this experiment. And while the bar type doesn't matter for our trip time, what does matter is the amount of bars needed to smith. For iron bars, I would need about 80 hours for this grind, and for steel bars, about 55 hours, which is a marginal difference, but every hour counts. So now let's bring it all together and wrap this section up. If I do a bit of quick addition, to get 93 smithing with iron bars, I would need approximately 1,323 hours, and to get it with steel bars, I would need about 1,162 hours. And that means that for me, steel bars will actually be faster, and substantially so. That's a difference of 161 hours, which is a lot when you compare the total of my sanity. One little thing to take note of here is that all of these calculations were for me focusing solely on the task at hand. I won't always be that focused, so I think it's fair to add at least 10 or 15% more to these numbers just to be safe, which means that the difference is probably closer to 200 hours, give or take. So with that number in mind, for me specifically, steel is actually going to be faster. For anyone else out there, it's almost definitely iron. But because I only have iron in the edge of a mine, steel wins for me by a landslide. And now to wrap things up, there's a couple of extra things to consider here. One, I don't have access to gold ore, as I mentioned at the start, but I do have access to gold bars from the Captain Arnav random event. And while mining, I am passively getting some crafting experience banked in the form of gems. If I can get enough gold bars to warrant it, I may train crafting to get rings of forging, which would give me 100% success rate on iron. As of right now though, I just have 12 bars, so it's probably not worth the investment into crafting just yet. And the last important things to note here are lamps and books of knowledge. Each one of the lamps and books save me a chunk of smithing experience I have to mine ores for, and over time they will definitely make a difference. So while I can't account for them in this experiment, I will be making full use of them as I mine, and hopefully that'll save me some hours as well. Alright, I'm sorry for the word vomit and the long-winded segment of this video, but it was extremely important. I'm talking about saving nearly 200 hours, which is massive, and the big takeaway here is that if you're playing a weird locked account just like mine, don't just take what the others say at face value. By refusing to just go with the flow, I've now got a plan that's substantially faster and more bearable. Most of the time those people will probably be right, but not always. So with that I had a plan, and it wasn't long until I managed to bank 10,000 coal, with which I wanted to make 5,000 steel bars to bump up my experience on lamps going forward. So I'll be settling into that grind for a little bit, but let's talk about this account for a second. I have a massive grind ahead, obviously, and I'm going to need time to do it, so I have one more chunker video planned for this year to wrap up Obor. But that's it, as it's almost definitely going to be next year before I finish the smithing grind. However, I do have a new series that is already underway, and it's a pretty unique series at that, which would also explain why this video is a little later than I wanted it to be. The first video for that series should be out in early October, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. And if you were paying attention, there was a small teaser in this video for that new series. So that's it for this one, folks. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and leave me a comment to help me get through this terrible grind. Don't forget to check out the new video series dropping in October, and thank you all so much for your continued support. It really does keep me going. And with that, I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye.